Assalamu alaikum, my beloved students. This is your history lesson for class 7, week 3rd, April 20th to 24th. Let me give a little recap what we studied last week. We studied, then we completed our chapter number 1. And in that chapter, we studied the fall of Roman civilization, the rise of Islamic civilization, followed by the ruling time of Khulafa Rashidun, and those were succeeded then by Umayyads, and afterwards Abbasids and some other dynasties. So in chapter number 2, we have the chapter number 2 called um Muslim inventors and scholars, and the topics to be covered. And I'll be very, I'll advise you guys to open your textbook, page number 8 to 9, in order to make it more good in learning and to enhance the experience as well. So your textbook, page number 8 and 9, chapter number 2, Muslim inventions and scholars. In this chapter, we're going to learn the inventions and the modernizations that the Muslims brought and the scholarly stuff that really happened. The topics to be covered in this week: Al-Khwarizmi, Al-Razi, and Ibn al-Haytham. So I would request you guys to open page number 8 of your textbook. The expansion of the empire under the Umayyads and Abbasids also led to a culture and civilization, particularly to Islam. Muslim scientists, astronomers, mathematicians, doctors, and philosophers contributed immensely, highly to science, literature, knowledge, and culture. Baghdad, the capital of Abbasid Empire, became the center of Islamic learning as well as intellectual center of the world. So here we know, as the expansion of the Islamic empire under Umayyads or Abbasids, it actually brought more into the Islamic civilization in terms of science, technology, astronomy, mathematics, philosophy, and other various aspects. So Baghdad was the capital of Abbasid Empire, became the center of Islamic learning. It was the center point, the focal point at which the people would learn about Islam, and the intellectual center of the world, and they would use their brain in order to invent new stuff. At Baitul Hikmah, as we studied in the last chapter, at the Baitul Hikmah, scholars collected and translated works of the ancient Greeks and books from Persia, India, Syria, and North Africa into Arabic, because their native language was Arabic, so they had to kind of translate the other stuff and the scriptures and the knowledge into their own language in order for the masses to understand. Hunayn ibn Ishaq al-Abdi, 809 to 873, an Arab Christian, was the main translator of the works of Aristotle, Plato, and Hippocrates from the Greek into Arabic. So this shows the diversity and the versatility of that empire, that even Christian scholars, they would be honored and they would be given the privilege to translate the stuff into Arabic language for make the local people to understand well. Muslim scholars were able to make further innovations and inventions. This knowledge was made available to Muslim and non-Muslim scholars and scientists of the time. Arabic literature was translated into Latin and contributed to the ideas of European modern philosophy. Muslim science and technology developed up to 1258, brought enlightenment to the dark or Middle Ages in Europe, and ultimately led to Renaissance. So this shows that Muslims did really contribute in the development and the innovation of the world at that time, because of their knowledge and because of their intellectuality. So the very first topic that we're going to cover is Al-Khwarizmi. Let's move to the next slide, and let's study about Al-Khwarizmi and his contributions. Al-Khwarizmi, 780 to 850. Your textbook, page number 8. My dear students, let's begin. Persian Muslim scholar at Baitul Hikmah in Baghdad. So at this point, we know that he was a Persian Muslim scholar. He was a mathematician who established the Indian numerical system and a use of zero digit in mathematics. So it's very crucial and very important for you to learn that the number 0 and Indian numerical system was very first introduced by Al-Khwarizmi. His book Al-Maqala fi Hisab Al-Jabr wal-Muqabala laid the foundations of Al-Jabra, the modern algebra that we study in the maths, Al-Jabr, and the system of logarithms and algorithms. Al-Khwarizmi is named after him. So the logarithms we study in the maths, the algorithms by which we study the numerical stuff, and this is how the whole internet thing, the internet stuff, internet surfing is placed upon. For example, YouTube, it uses algorithms to operate, and algebra is very common in our maths, and we derived a lot of formulas, and there were a lot of developments in the world after the development of algebra. he was a geographer and an astronomer, and authored a book called Kitab Surat al-Ard, the image of the earth. At that time, because he was a geographer, he somehow did manage to get the image of the earth by his knowledge. There is an international award of mathematics named after him, as mathematics was his forte, his pioneer, and his excellence. He was the one who is considered as one of the excellent people in the fields of mathematics. Let's get to our later topic, which is Al-Razi. And his time span was, his life was 865 to 925, and textbook page number 8. He was also Persian Muslim, had studied medicine in Baghdad. In comparison to Al-Khawarizmi, he was a mathematician, an astronomer, and a geographer, while Al-Razi, he was a medical student. He studied medicine in Baghdad, a polymath. A polymath is a person of wide knowledge, well-known physician and alchemist, a chemist, philosopher, and a scholar. He studied symptoms and treatment of smallpox and measles. He observed patients and noted their symptoms and gave the concept of hospitals. He gave the concept of modern day quarantine. You know, by this I mean I'll bit elaborate it for you guys in order to understand. He would see and know the symptoms of a patient, and then he would put this patient in an isolation at a ward and in a room, and he would treat along in accordance to the symptoms. And then he would this is how he actually introduced the modern day quarantine system. He wrote more than 200 books, and nearly out of it half are on various aspects of medicine and diagnosis and treatment of diseases. So as I've told you earlier, that he was a guy who did study medicine in Baghdad. So he was the one who studied about the medicines, about the diseases and their symptoms and their treatments and all that, you know. And let's move to the next slide, which is Ibn al-Haytham, 965 to 1040, textbook page number 8 and 9. Came from Basra, a city of Iraq, stayed and studied in Cairo in Madrasa Dar al-Ulum, attached to Al-Azhar Mosque. Specialized in optics, mathematics, physics, medicine, and development of modern experimental scientific method that we generally study when we study science. His book Kitab al-Manazir, Book of Optics, comprising 7 volumes, was studied by Western scholars and led to optical research and later the invention of the modern day camera that we have. So in literal means, or I'll be very shortly saying that the camera was actually invented after going through the research and the knowledge given by Ibn al-Haytham. The creator al-Haytham, Latin version of al-Haytham's name on the moon, and also asteroid 59239 al-Haytham are named after him. His geometric calculations and contributions in scientific research were a big stride in mathematics and science. Because of his calculations, they were able to make a lot in the mathematics and science. And even as we studied that the moon and also the asteroid, his knowledge and his works really helped the people, those who wanted to go to the moon, because he calculated through the mathematician others. So this is it, and this is how we know that all of these scholars, they did contribute. They were all Muslim scholars. We need to know that, and they contributed so much for the well-being of the science, for the well-being of the people, and they did contribute in the modern day, what we know is science and whatnot. So I've posted a picture here of the masjid. Sorry, it's a masjid, but along with that, it's the Al-Azhar University in Cairo. I hope you have a good weekend, my kids. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, guidelines for students to enhance their learning experience to maximize the productivity. Go through all dates and timelines because they can come in an MCQ form and in comparison with one another than the personalities. Important points have been written in red in the presentation. You can see I've mentioned that the points which I consider to be very important in red marker. Know the differences in all these personalities and their contributions as they can come in MCQs and fill in the blanks form. And last but not the least, assignment and key has been provided along with chapter 1, long short questions solved. So chapter number 1's long and short questions solved are also being provided in the files. You can go and check out, inshallah. I hope you'll have a good weekend ahead. Assalamu alaikum, my students.